What's up, everybody? This week I'm joined by Nian Fiedler as we sit down and talk about an album that changed the sound of a band and stopped it from splitting up. U2's Achtung Baby. That and a whole lot more is to come on this week's episode of the 90s Podcast. Welcome to the show. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to the 90s Podcast right here on the Because Baby Network. Hope you're doing well today. And this week I'm joined by Nian Fiedler. Nian, how are you, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. Nian is a podcast editor and U2 aficionado, so it's the perfect man to have on this week. He can tell me what I'm doing wrong with production and give us a good explanation about what we're talking about.
I stand at your feet when it comes to Adobe Audition.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Now was a good time to say that I did the first few seasons on Cool Edit.
Oh, well, yes. Cool. Well, Cool Edit was the precursor, right?
Yeah. No, it was simply because my wife wasn't in school at the time. How we got the Adobe Audition stuff is my wife went to school and paid for it. And at the time, she wasn't in school, so it's like, okay, I've got to use what I've got. And now I can't live without it. Because I've got everything.
That was Cool Edit was the big deal for us for a while there at our workplace.
Oh yeah, when I used to work at the radio station back home, we were still using Cool Edit, and it was new. It was new at that point. You know, now it's 20 years old. And
better than Goldwave.
Oh, those fighting words. Not really, but say that to Greg, and they'll be fighting words. But so we are here not to judge the quality of audio editing software, which we could be here all day talking about that. We're here to talk about the 1991 classic album by U2, Achtung Baby. What are your initial thoughts before we go ahead and dive into this?
Initial thoughts. Well, I would say maybe, do you want a little background of my U2-ness?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Well, I think the reason, when I had two older brothers growing up, Nathan and Noah both, so that's why I got Nian, because Ian got an N put on the front of it. So, but my oldest brother, was listening to, Boy, War, October, Unforgettable Fire. So this is probably back in like 85, and I would like lay in the hallway with my head down at his door, listening to this music that I was just like kind of mesmerized by. And after we would get out of church, we would go out to the minivan waiting for my parents would still be in church for a while, and my dad was a preacher, so and he would just blast like War and Boy, just and so that's where I think got the feeling for the band as something special or different, and and then when I was like 12-ish, 13, that's when the Joshua Tree came out. And so I remember where I was riding in the back of our old broken down Oldsmobile when they're like, oh, here's the first single from U2's Joshua Tree, and With or Without You came on, and I was just sort of like transported to a different place, with that song. So that's sort of where my own fandom came to life, apart from being just like my brother's band. So got into Joshua Tree, and Rattle and Hum came out, the movie and all that stuff. And in retrospect, Rattle and Hum is an album with some incredible material on it and some with not incredible material on it. So if I'm looking for rhythm and blues music, I don't go to YouTube. So Achtung Baby hit right in that sweet spot for me. I was, let me think, 16.
Yeah.
So I remember I would come home every day from school, and if I had any mail, there would be like my mom or dad would have left it on the stairs up to my room, and I walked in, and there's my Rolling Stone that laying on the stairs, right? And I looked at it, I'm like, okay, I don't know what that is. And I like took a double take, and I'm like, what the? That's U2. And here's U2 with black leather and wraparound shades, and the whole thing. And I was like, what? And this was like the making of Achtung Baby right before the album came out. And I had just moved to Wisconsin from Michigan, and I went back to visit Michigan, my friends there. And when we were there, there was a good radio station that you could get from Detroit after like 11 o'clock.
Okay.
And so it switched from like rock music to good alternative indie stuff at like 11 or 12. And they were going to play the full album at midnight, but on the release date. And so I took my friend's boombox and I got a blank tape. And as soon as it came on, I recorded the whole thing. And to me, it was like those first strains of Zoo Station pretty much made you just sort of your jaw drop and think like, what the hell is going on? You just went from Angel of Harlem to Zoo Station, and I listened to that recorded tape for all the way back home to Wisconsin until I could get to the store to get the cassette and then the CD and all that stuff. So it was a very pivotal moment of my YouTube fandom, but just music in general. It was kind of ground shifting.
Cool. Yeah, it's see, you said you 16 when this came out. I was, one of my favorite bands dropped an album when I was 16, and it was not their best album, so that kind of let me down a little bit like that. But it was "Stand on the Shoulder of Giants" by Oasis. See, I'm a big Oasis fan. I think I've mentioned that like 8 times on this podcast already with the 4 album reviews and the song review, and but they dropped their
worst bands to be fans of.
They're underrated band in the US.
You were 16. What year was that?
2000. So,
okay.
Yeah, I was born in 84. So I just turned 40 this year, and my sister was the same thing with music too, because I had to share a room with her when I was younger because we only had 2-bedroom house, and I remember she would be playing like Madonna and Vogue on the radio all the time, and this will always stick with me. I remember I was sick with tonsillitis, and she was sick too, but she was trying to learn Vogue, and anytime I hear the words Billie Jean, the first thing that comes into my head is not Billie Jean's Not My Lover. It's on the cover of a magazine. Because she played that part over and over and over. So, but
yeah, I mean, that was my other brother. He got me into REM and the Smiths. So
nice.
So my top 3 bands are U2, REM, and the Smiths. So that's the trifecta.
That is, and it's something I've said before, and this is not meant as anything to be offensive. I've never met anybody who were fans of REM or U2 until I got into college. Like, everybody liked REM and U2, but I never met any fans of them. You know what I mean? So like I got into college, and I got into a band with a couple of guys, and they were big REM nuts. Mm-hmm. And like they said, we're going to be playing a song. This is an REM B-side. This is called Superman. And I'm like, oh wow, okay, they're going really deep into the into their fandom. Good song, but
Yeah, I mean, that's just age. I mean, it's I mean, U2 hysteria of some sort. I don't know if you want to call it quite that, but I mean, it was when I was in high school at that time with ZTV in 1991, 92 with the tour and everything. I mean, it was highly, it was quite big at that time. And, the first tour, just to show you kind of how big that transition was from Joshua Tree to Achtung Baby, when they first rolled out Zoo TV, I don't think they weren't quite sure how it was going to be received. And so they did a very small 9-date arena run. And they were going to be playing in Chicago. And I lived in Milwaukee, or near Milwaukee. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to get tickets to this thing. And so I, started calling right when they went on sale. And I called for like 2 hours with a busy signal, only to find out the next day it sold out in 30 seconds. So
wow.
It was like, but luckily a friend of mine who was not really a U2 fan somehow had tickets, and I paid him double the price, which was $50 a ticket.
Wow.
At the time, but $25, I got them for 50.
Can't get a ticket for $50 these days.
No, you cannot. Maybe REO Speedwagon at the county fair or something. So I got to see them indoor and outdoor and a few times on that tour. So anyway.
Well, Sarah has been to see U2 on the Pop Mart tour in '97.
Yeah.
She was so mad at that one because she's a big Oasis fan too. That's part of how we met. And they were doing the opening for him for U2. Mm-hmm. And it turned out that the gig that they were going to was the last date that they weren't going to be opening for them.
I know.
But she got Rage Against the Machine instead.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw them on Pop Mart. Yeah, I saw them in Madison, and then like the 3 nights at Soldier Field.
Nice.
That's where I actually got to talk to Bono a little bit. He came out, and I didn't have tickets, and he asked if anybody didn't have tickets, and I said, I don't have tickets, and so
he got you in.
That was the 3rd night. Yeah. But yeah, that was a good tour. But Rage was awesome. But yeah, Oasis, that would have been.
Because at the time they were the biggest band in the world. Even though they were opening for U2, they were sold the biggest band in the world. They sold the most records. They were playing in front of the most people. So whether they cracked America or not didn't matter. They were just between 94 and 97. Nobody could touch them.
Yep, exactly. That was that's like, I would say U2 sort of been the biggest consistent rock band for probably the last 37 years.
Definitely.
There's been many that have risen above them along the way, but it's usually kind of short spurts.
Yeah. And U2 always stands tall.
Yeah, it's they've stood. I mean, they're together? They got together in '76. Same members, right? So longest running band with the same members of all time. So long time.
Well, then again, this is what I say: the Rolling Stones need a bassist and a drummer, and the Beatles all are a bassist and a drummer. I'm just saying. But let's talk about let's dive into this. This was released on. Let me get my date right. This was released on November 18th, 1991. Reached number 1 in the Billboard charts and reached number 2 in the UK album charts. Which, at the time, UK album charts top 5 was what you aimed for, and to get a number 1 album was. It was very, very hard because there was a lot of good music came out at the time, and it was sales based. I don't know what the criteria was in the United States. I know that for single play over here, it's how many radio plays you get plus how many singles you sell. That wasn't in the UK, so it's a lot easier to get in the top 40 in the UK based on sales alone. But that number two in the UK album chart in 1991, I'm trying to think who would have been challenging them, and the only thing I can think of is Nirvana.
I mean, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Yeah, I mean, rock wise, it's interesting. I didn't know this either, but when it came to, I always thought that Nevermind went to number 1. That did not. And I was curious myself, so I went to go look at what were the number 1 albums of 1991, And if you want to see how U2 and Nirvana fit in at that time, it was Vanilla Ice,
Oh, wow.
Mariah Carey, Michael Bolton, REM, out
REM.
of time, yep. NWA, Skid Row, Natalie Cole, Garth Brooks, Guns N' Roses, U2, and Michael Jackson. So that was the musical landscape of 1991.
And they got a number one. So that's some pretty heavy. That's some heavy hitters and some people that I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Skid Row in 1991. I thought they were like big in the late 80s, but I didn't realize they,
Yeah, they must have pulled out. Maybe it was a week, a WEAK, WEEK. You know what I mean? It might have been a week of releases, and they snuck it in there somehow.
Poor Skid Row. There was a show a few years ago on VH1 that it was Supergroup, it was called, and it had the lead singer from Skid Row there, and he spent the whole time drinking and not doing anything until they forced him to quit drinking until the concert that they built him up to do, and then he brought out a bottle of Jack Daniels and drank it on stage.
That was that Sebastian Bach.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
I couldn't remember his name.
Like that.
But so going back to 87 real quick, U2 released Joshua Tree, and the album was like one of the best albums that was ever made. It sold 25 million copies, made the band into a worldwide, they were big, but this is what launched them into superstardom. And then they released Rattle and Hum. What are your thoughts on Rattle and Hum? Because I honestly have not heard anything from there.
Fastest selling album in the UK history, I think, but did not really go over big in the US. My thoughts on Rattle and Hum. I loved it at the time when I was 13 or whatever. But it has some really incredible songs on it. I would say, Desire is okay. It's an okay song. But Heartland, God Part 2, All I Want Is You, Hawkmoon 269, those songs are outstanding. And it's sad that they had sort of this, I don't know really what they were thinking, mixing in all the live stuff and the movie, and it was sort of, you look back, and I guess the best thing that I can say about Rattle and Hum is that I think they realized that that they needed they needed to change things, and so I will bless them. I'll bless Rattle and Hum for that.
Well, Larry Mullen Jr. said in Rolling Stone magazine that we were the biggest but not the best when he's talking about Rattle and Hum, because the band were commercially successful at the time, but artistically they weren't satisfied with anything.
Yeah, I think that that's the thing. Like, I don't think that you would have to dig really deep on that album to get to that really good stuff, and not nobody. I mean, it was. I think it sold like 8 million copies in the U.S. or something. But
no, I need Joshua Tree.
Yeah, exactly.
That's fair enough.
And I think at the end of that, the Lovetown tour, which is the tour for Rattle and Hum, that's when Bono was like, at the very last concert, he said, this is sort of the end of something. It's not a big deal. We just have to go away and dream it all up again. And nobody really knew what they were talking about. But
that is such a Bono thing to say.
But I mean, usually I am very critical of Bono's like hyperbolic, over glowing statements of themselves or something. But that one was pretty true. So I'll give him that one.
There you go. Well, the band then went away and searched for new musical ground. I mean, like you mentioned, God 2 was the first sense of like changing their style because it was getting stagnant. And then The Edge wrote for the Clockwork Orange stage show. And my word, I love that movie. I said it last week in the Trainspotting, a couple of weeks ago in the Trainspotting episode. I love that movie. It's a very, very dark movie. Very dark movie. But I did not realize Edge was the one who scored the stage show.
Yeah, I didn't know that till probably a few years ago myself.
Wow. And then they did a cover of a song called Night and Day. Now, I don't know anything about...
So Cole Porter was a songwriter. Okay. Back in, I want to say, 40s, 50s, I'm not sure. And he was gay. And this was the album that this was on was a compilation album called Red Hot and Blue. And it was probably, what was it, 89 or 90? And they did a cover of it. And it sounds nothing near the original, and it does feature like electronic drums and heavy synth and sort of very dark, a very dark take on it. And Bono hits like falsettos that I could not believe that he could hit. And that came out in that time, and it's kind of weird because I listened to that and I still was shocked at Achtung Baby. But when you look back on it now, you're like, oh man, that's like
an appetizer to it.
Direct, yeah, exactly.
Okay. Brian Eno and Dave Lanois were hired to produce the album. Both had worked with U2 in the past, and Brian Eno claimed his role was to come in and erase anything that sounded too much like U2. Looking at that statement now, I don't want to say this is a typical U2 album. Made this album sound, even though it was groundbreaking at the time, anything that's come after it sounds like, well, that could be an Achtung Baby. That sounds like a U2 song, And it's got a lot of seeds planted. I was listening to the album earlier today to prepare myself, and a lot of the songs I'm thinking, okay, that sounds like stuff from All You Can't Leave Behind. And that's that's a decade from now, So, yes, they stripped away all the old U2, and this was the starting of the new U2, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I think, Daniel, Eno and Lanois both worked on the Joshua Tree. They both worked on Unfruitful Fire. And they were just good at getting the best out of the band. Obviously, two great albums.
Yes.
But I think Eno was there to sort of erase what wasn't U2. Lanois was sort of there. He would often be pushing them to like play, kind of pushing them back a little bit, like play to your strengths, is what he would say. And Bono would say, we want to play to our weaknesses. We don't want to play to ours. We're trying to do the exact opposite of what we've been doing. So we've been, just a side note, like, on the Joshua Tree, he was Where the Streets Have No Name, obviously one of their biggest songs ever. And it was a very difficult recording process. And at one point, Eno had taken the reel of tape and tried to destroy it because he didn't want them to work on it anymore.
Wow.
But luckily, somebody else there saved it. And anyway.
Keeping that side note, I've always said that the first three songs of Joshua Tree, that triple punch, is like one of the best openings of any album of all time.
Yeah, I mean, and what, number 4 is Bullet the Blue Sky or something like that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's still keeps on rolling.
Keeps on rolling. So to record the album, the band went to Germany, to Berlin in 1990, which, Germany in 1990 was it was an interesting place to be. I don't think it was unified yet at early 90.
They actually landed. The band landed the day before the wall came down.
Wow. I did not know that. Because all of guys, they head out to Germany in 1990. Well, I didn't have any dates for that. But
it was.
So they got that just for Unification Day. Wow. That is very interesting. But that wasn't a good idea for them to get out there, because it did cause friction between the band, because they couldn't agree on direction to go musically for this album. Plus, they were working out of a former SS ballroom with old equipment, so they weren't happy. They wanted the best, and they definitely wanted to get out of Nazi territory.
Yeah. I think Hansa Studios, I think that's where, Bowie did Heroes or something like that. I'm not sure. And yeah, definitely, the band was headed in two different directions. The rhythm section was listening to the Jimi Hendrix band and classic rock stuff, and Bono and the Edge were listening to KMFDM, My Bloody Valentine, Front 242, even some Nine Inch Nails, things like that.
Yeah.
And they were in, and so, some of the bands I think that sort of maybe crossed a bit was like the Stone Roses, which I'm a huge fan of. They have an amazing drummer, and I think that was something they could agree on. Pixies at the time, Pixies had just formed, and Bono and the Edge were both big fans of theirs, and I think that they opened for them on ZTV as well. And I think there was a little bit of crossover, but I mean, the tension was high. I mean, it was like two camps, and they were kind of battling each other.
Well, the camp that's going to win is the biggest stars. Sadly, you find that out. You find that out all times.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you mentioned the Smiths earlier on, and I mean the way that the rhythm section of the Smiths got done over by Morrissey and Marr. I love Johnny Marr, but that's something that I can't look him in the eye for that one, But so you two moved to Dublin in early '91, and they rented a house and began using rented equipment to begin the sessions. The sessions were liked by the band in Lanark, but Eno thought it was a total disaster and stripped away a lot of the excessive overdubbing. Excuse me. The band believed that saved the album from being a wreck. So Brian Eno showing up and saying, "I don't like this, peel this one off," kind of saved the album from going even more into the rattle and hum indulgence, so to speak.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's good to have him around. I mean, I think, you look back at Unbrutal Fire, I mean, that is like, all over it, right?
Yeah.
And for the better. And so, yeah, I was not really sure about that. That's interesting.
Well, this album wasn't... Bono took a long time writing lyrics for this album, because the music was done long before the lyrics were written. And when they were written, they were some of his most personal lyrics he said that he'd ever written. And going through track by track, which we'll do here in a minute, I can see what he's talking about. Because Bono does speak in riddles and hyperbole and metaphor a lot. And that's just who he is. But when he says something blunt and to the point, you got to take it at face value, because it's not the metaphor that he's talking about.
Yeah, I think, the big change from past albums to this one was they kind of turned their view. The view prior was to the outside world. It was always like big sort of grand statements about the world out there.
Yeah.
Where the streets had no name, I still don't find I'm looking for. But this was like turning their eyes back onto themselves and their own things that were going on at the time. And so it was very personal, especially with, the Edge going through divorce, and that kind of runs through many songs on this album.
Well, it does. And I mean, like, we're going to go track by track here in a second. During some of the research that I went through this, I didn't realize that the tension was high between Bono and the Edge at this point.
Yeah, they had I think they went away for a little while from each other as well.
And I mean that surprised me because, like, there's a lot of bands where there's always two members that are always thick as thieves, and it's Bone on the Edge in this case, and it's just you never hear about in the music press in the UK. You never hear about infighting in U2. That's just unheard of. It's like they either didn't get along and just got on with the music, or whatever arguments they did have didn't become public.
Yeah, I think I think that they had fights like some others, but I do think that I think I've never seen them quite in the same way as, like, I see them more REM-ish, It seems like they're all kind of a band of brothers, right?
Yeah.
Where, there's a lot of bands that you just know there's tension, and there's people that, well, you're an Oasis fan,
yes.
So.
I mean, they split up with an electric guitar missing one guy's head by about half an inch. So, but let's go through track by track.
Yeah.
We're going to start off with Zoo Station, and we've got distorted drums and a signature riff, and the lyrics are inspired by a surreal story that Bono had heard, that the station was bombed and a whole host of animals escaped the station, leaving humans looking in the rubble. So
interesting.
So Bono wanted to use the zoo metaphor to show that the band were trying something new. Beasts breaking out of their cages,
Got it, yeah.
So there is a zoo station that was in East Germany, in Berlin. It was known as a stomping ground for drug dealers, pimps, prostitutes, pickpockets, and all sorts of criminal activity, especially when it was under East German control.
Yeah.
So it was kind of the New Orleans of Germany.
Yeah, I guess that sounds all right. Yeah, I think it's that the opening of that song. I think Adam had said, like, when people put this album on, I want them to think that either their CD player is broken or this is not U2, and that's about the feeling that you get when I first heard it. And just major distorted vocals, and the first line of ready for the laughing gas. I mean, it's sort of like just like you're into something completely different.
It's very Joker-esque.
I agree.
The Mark Hamill Joker, the animated Joker. Yeah, it's Bono. And this was before they did the Batman soundtrack, so I don't know if they had half an eye on doing more surreal stuff like that and going deeper into character work. But this does have a hint of Mark Hamill's Joker about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all was character, right? I mean, was sort of method acting in music. It was he had his different personas that he would play during concerts. But the Fly character essentially was just they kind of just embodied it, or Mephisto when he was in Europe was just another amazing character that I think just shows, I think their term that they said during that time was they were just immersed in the art. There was no outside world. Everything was about the music. Everything was about the art at the time.
Cool. Well, the song itself, from a technical standpoint, was a difficult one to mix, and Brian Eno did several mixes before the band said, "Okay, stop. This is what we're going with."
Yeah.
Because and that's the thing I've learned about mixing too. You can tweak it too much that you can break it straight away and never get it back.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you go, the worse it gets. But yeah, I mean, and that's now that's part of YouTube's problem now, right? They they overthink and they over bring in more producers to try and mix it again, and these were a little bit.
This is peak YouTube.
It was, and it was. They still making good music, but not like this sort of thing. So, and and it's good to have those type of producers that can actually sort of push back. You know what I mean?
They know how to work with them.
Yep.
Well, this song also has hints of psychedelia that was associated with the Beatles style of psychedelia. So, yeah, I could picture it. I could picture it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the Beatles psychedelia was all right. I mean,
yeah.
I'm a Beatles fan. I'll be honest, but the psychedelia wasn't as maybe Pink Floyd would become, or you know, later on down the line. So the next track on the album is Even Better Than the Real Thing, and The Edge decided that he found a guitar pedal that he was created a double octave sweep, which is very, very hard to pull off. So, and you know, with that as well, it sounds like a slide guitar in the guitar solo, and just completely and utterly built around this one riff that the Edge had.
Yeah, I think he was using a slide on that. I think. I think, you know, that's the thing with the Edge is he is like the scientist with the guitar more than he is a, you know, he's not there trying to like be the fastest player or the you know, whatever, but he can create sound that nobody else can, and until they hear him do it, and then they can recreate it somehow if they look deep enough into the equipment, right?
Well,
yeah,
he did a show on YouTube where he was showing off his equipment, and he was showing off the riff for Elevation, and he turned all his effects off, and it's just I'm playing two chords,
ding 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 ding,
yeah,
ding 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 ding,
and then he turned the effects on, and you got the whole effect thing going. It's like, oh, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
The band discovered their sense of fun recording this song. So they were having a good time. You know, I think they were more relaxed at this point after getting out of Germany and getting it back in Ireland. Bono said of the song, it was reflective of the times the band were living in. When people were no longer looking for truth, they were all looking for instant gratification.
Yeah.
So I love this song. This is my favorite song off the whole album. Really is.
Nice.
This is the one I hear the most of, aside from the one we're going to talk about here in a minute. But this one always stuck with me better because it had more energy to it.
Yeah.
You know, but
and the video is insane.
Yes, with the fingers and
with the camera that goes.
Yes. Oh my word, that made me nauseous.
Motion sickness.
Yes. Yes. Richard Branson, strangely enough, wanted to use this song to compete with Coca-Cola in the UK. He launched Virgin Cola in the UK, which was absolutely disgusting. It really was disgusting. Worse than store brand stuff.
I remember.
And he wanted to use this song in the commercials with the tagline, "The Real Thing." And even more interestingly, the band said no.
Yeah,
which
I think something like $30 million or something.
Yeah. The reason I'm surprised by it, honestly, is the fact that by 1991 they had enough money and they had enough advisors that they probably would have gone, throw another $30 million on the pile.
Yeah, but you know, it's not like it is now.
No.
Back then, you know, if you were a sellout, you were a sellout back then.
Yeah.
Now, you know, it's not as big of a deal. Everybody's doing sort of their
endorsements and stuff like that.
But I think back then they weren't gonna go down that road.
Well, we moved to the next song, which is the hit. The hit of the album. According to Spotify, when I was listening to the album earlier today to prepare for all this, according to Spotify, it has over 500 million downloads on Spotify. Considering that the next biggest track was Even Better Than the Real Thing at 50 million downloads, you know, it shows you how big this song really, really is. And this song is like Time of Your Life by Green Day in the sense that nobody got it. Or they thought they got it, but it turned out to be completely the opposite of what they got.
Yeah, yeah. It was, probably the most important song to them as a band.
Yep.
It was, that was in the midst of them fighting, and they, they were playing around with, I think, Mysterious Ways at the time, but it was not Mysterious Ways. Was it Sick Puppy or something?
I think so.
And playing some of the chorus parts, and Edge just started kind of playing a couple of parts, two different parts together. And someone's like, "Hey, wait, maybe that's." I think Lanois or something was like,
You got something
keep
there.
keep playing that, and so I think he started playing that riff, and Bono started singing like his normal nonsense stuff over it, which that's sort of how they would build songs at that time. Bono would just sort of sing just stream of thought stuff over the music, so they could kind of progress the music first. And I think they recorded it within like an hour or so.
Wow.
Which,
I mean, it's a fantastic song. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of people play it at weddings and anniversaries, and this is not a love song, everybody. This is
not a love song.
This is a song about splitting up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's considered a love song to many, but Bono's come out many times and said that's not the case. He said it's a song about coming together, but it's not the old hippie idea of let's all live together. It's in fact the opposite. It's saying we are one, but we are not the same. It's not saying we even want to get along. It's just we have to get along together into the world if we're going to survive. It's a reminder that we have no choice. That's bleak.
Yeah. And, the lyrics, is sort of like, especially the beginning of the song. I mean, towards the end is when it gets to be like, one love, one life. But, at the beginning, what is it? You see, did I disappoint you or leave a bad taste in your mouth? You act like you never had love. You want me to go without? Have you come here for forgiveness? Have you come to raise the dead? Have you come here to play Jesus to the lepers in my head? It just, love is a temple, love's a higher law. You ask me to enter, but then you make me crawl. And I can't keep holding on to what you got when all you got is hurt. So not exactly the wedding song that
everybody listens to. I think they ignore all that part. It's the one love, one life.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like, the chorus sounds great, but
That's right.
I mean,
and Johnny Cash, he did a good version of it.
Yes, he did. But Johnny Cash's latest stuff is fantastic, though. Yeah. I think that was Brian Eno again working on that stuff.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
But The Edge went one further and said it's a bitter, twisted, vitriolic conversation between two people who have been through some nasty, heavy stuff. But
says The Edge, who was going through the bitter and nasty stuff at the time.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, like you said, he was going through a divorce and just. Yeah. But in 2005, Bono would come out in Rolling Stone and said it's a father-son story. I tried to write about someone I knew and was coming out and was afraid to tell his father. It's a religious father and son, but. Even that first lyric is an argument. It's just.
That's Bono. That's Bono. Who's liking to, tell some other story. Yeah, I don't buy that one, but I mean, it kind of fits a little bit, but I would say.
Right. Well, Bono does have a Christ complex. Let's be honest. He does,
a little bit. But how can you be a good front man without it, right?
Right, and that brings us to Until the End of the World, which was inspired by the argument that nearly broke up the band. Bono had woken up the idea of a conversation between Jesus and Judas and wrote lyrics around it, which is very interesting. Now, yes. My wife was coming along to it earlier. She was getting ready for work, and as I was playing the album, And I told her it was a metaphor of, Jesus and Judas and everything like that. When I kissed you in the garden, It's ironic we were recording this around Easter time. But it's hard to tell who Bono is in this song. Is he Judas or is he Jesus?
I mean, it's written from the perspective of Judas.
Okay.
But yeah, this is my favorite U2 song. I think it combines everything great about the band in one song, lyrically, musically, live performance-wise, everything. So this is the one that I choose for now.
Well, no, it's a really good song. It really is, and I was shocked that the guitar riff that the song was built around was done by Bono.
Oh, I didn't know that either. Thank you, John.
Yes, I mean, it's just okay. This is what I got. And I double checked this to make sure that I wasn't, I wasn't pulling on my behind. So. Bono got the riff for this song, but he added the riff to a demo that the rest of the band were working on that had no involvement of Bono to begin with.
Yeah.
So, because sometimes U2, from my understanding, is they're a bit like REM and a bit like Red Hot Chili Peppers and all these other bands that have a front man and the rhythm section. Whereas the rhythm section get together and lay down all the music, and then the front man comes in and writes his stuff. But I keep forgetting that Bono used to play guitar at this era. Because he doesn't play poorly. He'd be the first one to say that.
Yeah.
But I forgot about that because with REM, they go ahead and record all the demos and then give it to Michael Stipe to and I described it as the band and the poet.
Mm-hmm.
So
and when you got Mike Mills, what can you do? Mike Mills and Peter Buck. I mean, come on.
That's a heck of a rhythm section.
Yeah, and what's interesting about this one too is this was the one that they were writing for. See, I think they were first writing it for a movie.
Okay.
So Wim Wenders was doing a movie called Until the End of the World, right? And so they were writing a song for it. I think that's probably why it wasn't going maybe through traditional songwriting practice of theirs, right? And once this song came together and they heard how good it was, Bono called up Wim Wenders and said, well, we'll let you use the song, but we're going to put it on our album too, and we're keeping the name. So
that sounds about right.
Yeah.
But no, this is a really, really good song. They overdubbed and sweeping guitars the crap out of it when it came to. But I think this is a real, real good song. And it's not my favorite on the album, but it's close up there. So go.
The solo is quite good.
Yes. This song was a difficult song to nail. It's called Who's Gonna Ride Your Wild Horses?
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a mouthful to begin with. But apparently there are a dozen mixes of this song sitting out there in vault libraries. And there's also a verse that was dropped.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's... Yeah.
And there's a demo out there that the band just wished they'd put on the album instead.
Yeah, I think it's... you don't hear that much from them back then, where they kind of felt like it never quite got to where they wanted it to be. They say that all the time now. But back then, I think it's an outstanding song. It's probably on a lower, few. It's probably the weaker, maybe 2 or 3 of songs. But it's just another song about heartbreak and being trampled underfoot, right? So.
Yeah. Well, they I don't think they've played it live. They said they've tried to, but the subtleties of the guitar work and everything like that make it a hard one to pull off in the arena setting.
Yeah, I think that is true. If I think about it, I think that Yeah, the only time I've really heard it is at the Sphere in Las Vegas, right? So I mean, yeah, it is one that you'd think that they could have done at least like an acoustic version of it or something, but yeah, I didn't really realize that either.
Well, that's the thing I never thought about till just a second ago. I've never heard the idea of U2 doing an unplugged show.
Well, they would do that in the middle of Zoo TV, and a lot of their shows, they'll sort of like, so, Zoo TV was sort of like very groundbreaking in its setup, but they were the first band to have a catwalk that would go out to like a satellite stage. And they would, so halfway through the show, they'd stop with like all of the, big heavy rock stuff. And they would do like, they do an acoustic set out in the middle of the, like three songs or something, Angel Harlem and Desire, stuff like that.
Stuff that the Edge can play is two notes with the filter on.
Good sing-along songs,
Kumbaya. Next track on the album is a track called So Cruel.
Yeah.
And very, very minimalist arrangement and a lot of use of piano, which is odd for them at the time.
Like New Year's Day was probably the only other one.
I mean, this is one of these rarely performed songs, so it's truly just an album track, and it's a really, really good song. It really, really is. It's very, very emotional. It's a very deeply emotional song, especially for U2. And that's not to say they haven't done any emotional stuff to begin with, but this is this is up there with some of the most emotional work that they've done.
Yeah.
The song's basically about emotional suffering and the love that slipped away. So is this sort of the Edge kind of?
Yeah, I think it's that when you're at the end. You know what I mean? When you've reached the end of that whole mess. And what's the lyric? I'm only holding on to watch you go down. Yes. That is just about says it all on that one. You love the men who love you, you hate the most. Yeah. Lines like that.
It's a cruel song, so cruel. So
and I do. Yeah, I think that it was felt by the whole band. It was that person was a part of the whole U2 family, right? And when that whole thing was going on, I think it was. So that's why I think it was easy for Bono to write some of the lyrics and things like that when it came to a song like this.
There you go. Seeing your friend go through something bad,
Mm-hmm.
We move on to The Fly.
Yay.
There you go. This was the first single off the album, or at least in Europe it was the first single off the album.
Yeah,
and it was the signal of the beginning of a new style. And this was the first song to have Bono's Fly persona come on out. And he designed the character to satirize rock stardom and provide commentary on various social issues, which, as Bono's ego has grown over the years, it's kind of become a self-fulfilling prophecy. He is what The Fly was against.
That was the whole sort of point of Zoo TV and Achtung Baby in general was, they had gotten to this point where everybody thought of them as these really serious, very stoic, very, stone-faced people, right? They were just these earnest people fighting for the freedom of the world, sort of, and so they turn that around and be like, I'm going to fully embrace this persona of being a rock star that will, it's all just about the material and the hedonism of rock stardom.
Yeah.
And I think he said that the Fly was like a man making a phone call from hell to tell somebody how much he was enjoying it. So yeah, it was, and that was the song, one of my very favorites as well. Just Yeah, they called this the sound of four men chopping down the Joshua tree.
Oh, there you go. That's
Yep.
a pretty heavy. That's a pretty heavy statement right there.
Yep.
Edge used a lot of heavy distortion and effects for his guitar parts for this song, which I don't want to say was unusual, but I mean, he used distortion a lot, but not heavy distortion.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, back up until then, maybe, like I said, maybe a little bit on Rattle and Hum, but yeah, and some distortion, but yeah, not like this.
Not like this. Move on to Mysterious Ways.
Yeah.
This was originally, as you mentioned, called Sick Puppy. This song has a very, very... Okay. The video for the song was shot in Spain, I think it was.
Yeah, I think so.
Like at a touristy, side streets of Mallorca, I think.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah.
No, it wasn't shot in the main city. It was shot definitely in touristy land. And so I always get this image of of young men and women going on some holidays, going out drinking and picking up women, picking up men, so on and so forth. And it just seems like a very, very laid back,
Yeah, I mean, it's a funky song.
Yep.
I think it's about a guy that he doesn't have love in his life. You know what I mean? And he kind of is out to. He just kind of has a very grandiose view of women and what they can bring to him love wise, and he's searching for that love that only a woman can give.
And well, this song is like it's appeared on lots. It's done the round of tours, with the band, and it's all on their best of songs list and everything like that. And they actually whip out a belly dancer whenever they perform it live.
Yes, and that belly dancer became the Edge's wife.
Really, I did not know that.
Yes, so they did have an original belly dancer that was on tour with them for a little bit. I did not know that either. And then another belly dancer came along to replace the first, and they ended up getting married.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So some happiness came from a lot of this.
That's right. And it's got a little touch. How U2 does, a little double meaning. So it has a touch of the spiritual thing. You kind of talk about women moving in mysterious ways or God moving in mysterious ways, and so that's I think there's a little bit of double meaning in there.
There you go. Next track is called "Trying to Throw Your Arms Around the World." Now, a lot of these titles are very, very wordy because I'm having a hard time pulling them out. But I like I said, I wasn't too familiar with this album, and then I listened to it over the last couple of weeks to get familiar with it, and I listened to it again today, and this is very, very upbeat, and in a very, very I don't want to say sweet kind of way, but it's okay. I mentioned, like I said, I want to waste this fan. They did a song called Digsy's Dinner on their first album, which it goes completely and utterly against the whole sound of the album, and it talks about taking my girlfriend out for lasagna, right? And it's cheap, it's cheap, it's cheerful,
That's awesome.
It's cheeky, this reminds me. My first thought was, this is their Digsy's Dinner. It talks.
Yeah, it's. Go ahead.
I was gonna say it talks about a drunken night out in Dublin by Bono, and how he just wants to throw his arms around the world, hug everybody,
Yeah, I think I think they've attributed it as well to I think when they kind of finished work on, I don't know if on maybe recording this album, they were out in LA and had quite a night
yes
there as well, but yeah, I think it's about, like you said, just sort of that drunken euphoria of just stumbling around and it's a happy drunk, right?
Yeah, everybody's your friend. Everybody's your friend, and
Right.
there's a line in here called the line here that goes, "A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle," and that was sung in the song, and it's actually was originally attributed to feminist icon Irana Dunn, and just what a line!
Yeah, that's awesome.
I mean.
And you'll find that even the second half of this album, there are lines from a lot of different literature that Bono was into at the time.
Yes.
And yeah, just and that little kind of surreal spot in there with "I dreamt that I saw Dolly in a supermarket trolley, trying to throw my arms around the world."
I mean, it's really a good song. It's a real, it's an outlier for the rest of the album, but I think that's what makes it stand out.
Yeah, I call it like the perfect intermission, where you go from sort of the dark beginning of the album to the much darker end of the album.
We got a quick night out to get in between before we get and do all this. Yeah. But no, it's a real good song. If you haven't listened to it before, if you're a younger person listening to this and want to go listen to the album, make sure that you listen to them in order, because it does impact how the song comes across, because it's really good. I mean, it's talking about drinking wine and a night out of drinking and walking around Dublin, which I've been to Dublin on a Friday night, and there are a lot of happy drunks out there, I tell you. Then again, I was 12 at the time, so
Right. You still know.
You still know it. The next track in the album is called Ultraviolet, or Light My Way, depending on which way you look at it. And it tackles themes of self-doubt, devotion, and the search of truth. This is more of your traditional rock song, and uses a lot of heavy use of echo and reverb on the effects pedals. So it's more going back to standard U2 fare, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I'd say a little more traditional edge guitar on this one.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a song of longing, you know what I mean? I think it's somebody who's just lost, needs some, and is looking for something or someone that can kind of get him out of where he is.
So this song is considered to be an underrated gem in the U2 category. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
It's been used by a lot of charity campaigns, including AIDS awareness, which I know is a big thing for Bono. The song title references ultraviolet light, which is invisible to the human eye but essential to life, tying into the song's themes. Interesting.
Yeah, that's a nice little twist on it. I like that.
Next up, we have Acrobat.
Another unsung gem.
Really, it has got a cult following. It really does. Not performed live until the Experience and Innocence tour, despite fans wanting it for years and years and years.
True.
So, jam sessions. This is one of the more guitar-heavy tracks on the album. I don't know too much about it. I mean, I tried to find information on this, and I couldn't find as much information as I wanted.
I would say the darkest song on the album, maybe. I mean, the last song is maybe getting there, but it is, but it is very much like it's pretty much about what was happening in their lives at the time, which was they were going from this image of, very high-minded and serious, rock people that were, socially conscious and all this stuff, to this new persona. And it was all about sort of that contradiction. It was all about the balance of how how do you do this on one hand and then this on the other, right? So
Yeah.
What's the lyric, is I must be an acrobat to talk like this and act like that.
Yeah.
Sort of how, in being this, you're going on tour, you're doing this rock stuff, and you're going home and you're putting your kids to bed and kissing your wife and thinking these are like two completely different worlds that I kind of have to make sense of in my mind. And and it was just, I think, and this is another one that's don't let the grind you down.
Yes, like I love that phrase.
I think it was from World War II times, some general back in the day. It was something like that.
It's a rough translation of the Latin phrase "noli illegitimae cabrudendum." I don't know. I can't speak Latin. But no, I've always loved that phrase. Always have. There was it's a British TV show called Porridge, which was based in a prison. It was a sitcom. And that was one of the main character would say to the young guys in and out of prison, "Don't let the grind you down. That's the only way you're going to get through this."
That's awesome.
So, but
I think, maybe you got it from Porridge.
Probably. Next up, and the final track of the album is Love is Blindness. And it captures the themes of emotional blindness, heartache, and disillusionment.
Yes, but does it really? It does. But if you read the lyrics, let's pull up these lyrics really quick. Let's see. So it, like many U2 songs, double meanings abound. But you have, in a parked car in a crowded street, you see your love made complete. Thread is ripping, the knot is slipping, love is blindness. Love is clockworks and cold steel, fingers too numb to feel, squeeze the handle, blow out the candle, love is blindness. So, and the lyrics will go on here, but very much referencing the blind following of extremists, terrorists, and so while it, I think, definitely has a kind of double meaning of a relationship as well, about, really giving yourself to somebody wholeheartedly and then having it kind of torn away, or somebody like seeming numb to your feelings and blowing out the candle on the relationship sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think that like a little death without mourning, no call, no warning, maybe a dangerous idea that almost makes sense. It's just really one of my very favorite U2 songs, probably my favorite live performance of theirs. If anybody wants to be blown away, go and watch the Sydney Zoo TV version of Love is Blindness. An already amazing Edge solo goes on for about 1.5 minutes, and it's quite something.
Part of that solo was he busted strings as he was playing, so he kind of improvised with it all, and it comes out spectacular. Like every great song, it has been covered by a multitude of artists, and the most famous is Jack White on the Great Gatsby soundtrack. When I pulled up the lyrics, it pulled up the Jack White version. So I took it to U2 and everything like that. But this was apparently originally to be given to Nina Simone.
Yeah, crazy, right?
Crazy.
And was conceived back in the Rattle & Hum days.
Yeah.
Which is, again, you knew something was bubbling up back then.
They just couldn't harness it properly.
Yeah. So interesting. I'm glad they didn't give it to Nina Simone.
There you go. Well, from what I've listened to it, and I'd give this an 8 out of 10. What would you give it?
No, John, it is my favorite album of all time.
There you go. So you give it an
I'm
11.
gonna have to give it a 10. I got to give it a 10. But yeah, there are others that are close. Some REM albums maybe.
But this is a solid 11.
Yeah, I give it. I think that it is stronger than the Joshua Tree overall. I think the Joshua Tree has, on the backside, has a couple of songs that are like really good, but maybe not. The
opening trio.
Yeah. So, but slightly. I mean, slightly edges out the Joshua Tree for me.
There you go. Yeah, I think 8 out of 10. It's a good album. Edge's riffs are completely on form. The lyrics for me don't do it all the way and conflict each other. If they're trying to say something, they conflict each other. And I mean, the Zoo Station messed with my head a little bit when I tried to listen to it. But the Jesus Judas metaphor as well. I mean, you could say no, that's Bono being Bono, but who is he trying to be? You said yourself he was from the point of view of Judas, but was he singing to himself or singing from himself? You know what I mean? It got me caught up in there. This album saved the band from breaking up. I mean, like I said, I was shocked when I first heard that because I thought these guys would be tight forever. They would continue with Zooropa, Pop Mart, and All That You Can't Leave Behind over the next few years, and would kind of build on this sound and would do a real good job on it. Over the course of the 2000s, though, the band started getting rejected by mainstream fans. A lot of them thought that they were disingenuous, or they were over ingenuous. If that makes sense.
Yeah, right.
And that culminated with the launch of Songs of Innocence on Apple that everybody got. Now, I'm one of like 12 people who like that album. I really do. I think it's a really good album.
I think it's a great album.
Not one of their best, but really good.
I like it. I like it better than All That You Can't Leave Behind and Atomic Bomb. Yeah. I'm not a big fan of either of those albums. All That You Can't Leave Behind, I think, has several outstanding songs on it, and the rest is sort of all right. A little bit, and then Atomic Bomb, I think, musically has some cool stuff on it. Vertigo is like a perfect rock song. I mean, I don't think you can really, City of Blinding Lights. There's some good songs in there, but for the most part, I feel it's the delivery and the lyrics a little clunky for me. Don't really love it. But yeah, Songs of Innocence, great album. If anybody wants to take a listen.
Yeah, it's on your iPhone, so you can. No, and I joke with that. Like I said, I thought it was great. I really did. Yeah.
And remember, Apple gave it to you, not you two.
Yes,
Apple did it.
Apple bought the album for $80 million, and you two said, "Well, it's better. It's better than Virgin Cola." So, But all right, I think we're gonna leave that one there, Nian. Thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate it. I appreciate your knowledge of U2.
Thank you so much.
Even though I'm Welsh Irish, my knowledge of U2 is not as great as it should be, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your day for coming on here and talking and sharing your memories.
Thank you for having me. Hopefully, I can. Maybe sometime we'll talk about REM or somebody.
Well, maybe we can. But I'm going to be back here in a couple of minutes, so I'll talk about what's coming up in the next couple of weeks. Nian will be back on here with an open invitation, and we will be back here in a little while.
Bye.
Sincere thank you to Nian Fiedler for coming on this week. I know his knowledge of REM, U2, and Stone Roses is impeccable. That's why I tagged him up here. Nian is a good friend of mine who is also a podcast producer. Now, he doesn't produce this podcast. I like to do this one myself. But I haven't got a list of things that he produces, but he does do a lot of business podcasts and a lot of uplifting podcasts. And yeah, look out for him on Apple and so on and so forth. Next week will be our season finale of season 10, as I'm joined by Greg Gregory. We talk about Men in Black. I love Men in Black. I think it's a fantastic movie. There's a huge plot twist that I'm not going to tell you about. We're going to talk about it next week, and it's going to be a lot of fun. Why am I making this the season finale? I'll be completely honest with you. I've only got 4 more episodes researched, and I've got 14 episodes planned. So I've got to do a whole lot of research, and I wouldn't have the research done in time to record, produce, and everything to get them all on time. So by pushing them out a couple of months, I've got time to do the research, because the research takes. If I did 1 episode a day, I'd be happy, because the research takes several hours to do, because it's not a current podcast. So, it's a pain to do, and I haven't done it in time, and that's all on me. And plus, we've got a rule here at ATW Creative Media that I've got to have at least everything researched before I record everything. I was only planning on doing 11 episodes this season, then I added another 14, so now I'm making that season 11. And that's coming up we're going to be back here on July 7th, okay? And I'll give you more information as that comes. Check out our social media pages on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. That's where you'll find all the latest news and what's happening. On our YouTube channel next week, we return to the land of Pokemon. There we play the Dog Ate My Homework series of Pokemon Red. We are almost at the end. That'll be part 15 of the stream. And I'm looking forward to finishing this game, because I've been playing it on and off for this series since October. It'll be nice to have something else to play. I knew it was going to be a large game, but I wanted to get this done. And yeah, the Dog Ate My Homework. And so here we are. I have to get this done by June 2nd, because that is the return of our Dad Streamer series. Dad Streamer is going back to Oddworld for one final attempt to complete New and Tasty. Now, for those of you who don't know, we played New and Tasty for a Thanksgiving charity stream back in 2019. That was 3 weeks after I came out the hospital after having a severe mental health issue. That's extra episode 8, I think, if you want more details in that. And I just didn't finish it. My brain burnt out halfway through, and I called it quits. I then tried to do it again this new year, back in January. That was over on our Twitch channel, and I got halfway through again. Well, we lost internet and lost power, so I was having a rough afternoon, and just couldn't get it done. So this time I'm going to play it a little bit more moderately, give myself a little bit of time to breathe, and work this out into 4 separate chunks so that I can get this through. And I'm going to play it on hard mode, because I know this game like the back of my hand, more or less, okay? Because it is just a remake of the original Oddworld. Now, if we were playing Soulstorm, I would take my time, but we're playing New and Tasty. Of course, we might play Oddworld Soulstorm sometime in the future, but not right now, okay? But want to get New and Tasty out of the way and just get some sense of closure on it. That's the same thing I want to do with the Pokemon Red, is get some closure on it. So, get closure on these 2 games. And then our Dad Streamer on July 7th. Special day on the Because Maybe Network. Because we have Season 11 launching, and we have Dad Streamer launching a series of Fallout, a post-nuclear role-playing game. Never played it. It is going to be a dumb, blind, click it until I make mistakes playthrough of the game. I'm a big fan of Fallout 3. I'm a big fan of Fallout 4. I never played New Vegas or 76, and to be honest, I don't want to play New Vegas. It just doesn't, from what I've seen, the clips I've seen, just doesn't appeal to me. It's just not for me, I'm afraid. So, but Fallout 4, Fallout 3, love those 2 games. The Fallout series, as of recording, I've watched 2 episodes of it. So I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the episodes actually today, after we do today's stream, which will be stream 12. So, I'm 3 weeks ahead, so. But with that in mind, I've babbled on long enough, and I thank everybody for taking the time to listen this week. Go to becausemaybepodcast.com for our archive. That's where you'll find everything that we've ever done, ever. Go check out Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Those links are in the show description below. in our link tree. So go ahead and click those. And don't forget to check out anywhere that you check out podcasts. This is where you'll find us. If you listen to this, for example, if you stumble on this on YouTube, we do have it on podcast form wherever you listen to your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Podchaser, Pandora, YouTube, Spotify, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, or Amazon Music. That is it for this episode. Take it easy, everybody. Bye.